Welcome to Celestial Zodiac. Today we're going to talk about the second house of the zodiac wheel. The second house in astrology represents value, stability, and the material foundation of life. After the first house establishes identity and personal presence, the second house answers the question of what we build, keep, and rely on in order to feel secure. This is the house of resources, money, possessions, and self-worth, but its meaning goes much deeper than finances alone. The second house shows what you value, how you sustain yourself, and what gives you a sense of safety and continuity in the world. The natural zodiac ruler of the second house is Taurus, and its natural planetary ruler is Venus. This gives the second house a steady, grounded, and sensory quality. Elementally, it aligns with Earth, and its modality is fixed, meaning this house is focused on preservation, consistency, and long-term stability. The second house does not rush. It builds slowly, carefully, and intentionally, seeking comfort and reliability over risk or speed. Psychologically, the second house governs self-worth and personal value. It reflects how deserving you feel of abundance, comfort, and security. This house reveals your relationship with having, owning, and sustaining. When the second house is strong, there is an inner sense of worth that does not depend entirely on external validation. When it is challenged, issues around scarcity, insecurity, or attachment to material things may arise. Many of the beliefs associated with the second house are formed early in life, often before we have conscious awareness of them. Our ideas about money, worth, and security are frequently inherited from family dynamics, cultural norms, and childhood experiences. Some people grow up learning that stability comes from saving and caution, while others learn that resources are scarce and must be clung to tightly. These early messages become internalized and shape how the second house operates throughout adulthood. Because of this, the second house is deeply connected to survival psychology. It governs what you believe you need in order to feel safe existing in the world. For some, that sense of safety comes from financial savings or material possessions. For others, it comes from consistency, routine, or knowing exactly what to expect. When these needs feel threatened, anxiety around security and worth can surface quickly, even if the external situation doesn't fully justify it. Externally, the second house governs money, income, possessions, and material resources. It shows how you earn, how you spend, and what you choose to invest in. This includes not only financial assets, but also physical objects that provide comfort and stability. The second house describes what you surround yourself with and what you rely on to feel grounded in the physical world. On an inner level, the second house is about values. It governs what you consider important, worthwhile, and worth protecting. These values shape decisions, priorities, and long-term goals. While the first house says, "This is who I am," the second house says, "This is what matters to me." The second house highlights the difference between outer security and inner security. Outer security is tangible and measurable: income, savings, possessions, and physical comfort. Inner security, however, comes from self-trust, resilience, and confidence in one's ability to adapt. When these two forms of security are aligned, life tends to feel grounded and stable. When they are out of balance, tension often arises. It's possible to have financial stability and still feel deeply insecure, just as it's possible to have limited resources yet feel emotionally grounded and capable. The second house asks us to examine where our sense of safety truly comes from. Are we relying solely on external structures, or have we developed an internal sense of worth that can support us through change? This distinction plays a major role in how we respond to loss, uncertainty, and growth. In everyday life, the second house shows up in how you handle money, how you manage resources, and how secure you feel in your ability to support yourself. It influences spending habits, saving tendencies, and attitudes toward ownership. Others may perceive your second house through your sense of stability, reliability, or attachment to comfort and routine. In daily life, the second house influences not only how we earn and spend money, but also how we relate to comfort and routine. It shows up in habits around food, clothing, living spaces, and personal rituals that create a sense of stability. Some people express this through minimalism and simplicity, while others surround themselves with objects that provide reassurance and pleasure. The second house also shapes attitudes toward work and productivity. Many people unconsciously tie their sense of worth to how much they earn or how productive they are. This can lead to feeling valuable only when producing something tangible. When the second house is out of balance, people may stay in unfulfilling situations simply because they provide security, even if those situations no longer support growth or well-being. Behaviorally, this house affects how willing you are to take financial or emotional risks. It shapes whether you prefer security over change and whether you hold on to things, or people, longer than necessary. A strong second house emphasis often brings patience, endurance, and consistency, while a challenged second house can manifest as fear of loss, possessiveness, or difficulty trusting that resources will be available. When planets are placed in the second house, they become deeply tied to issues of value and security. These planets influence how you earn, what you value, and how you define worth. Because the second house deals with sustenance and stability, planets here tend to operate in practical, tangible ways. For example, the Sun in the second house often emphasizes self-worth through achievement and material success. The Moon in the second house seeks emotional security through comfort, routine, and financial stability. Venus in the second house enhances appreciation for beauty, pleasure, and material enjoyment. Regardless of which planet is involved, planets in this house shape the way value is created and maintained. The ruling planet of the second house is Venus. This ruler plays a key role in understanding how a person relates to money, possessions, and self-worth. Venus governs attraction, pleasure, and values, so its placement in the chart reveals what you are drawn to and what you prioritize. To find this in your chart, look at the sign on the cusp of the second house and then locate where Venus is placed. The condition of Venus can show whether value and security come easily or require conscious effort. A well-supported Venus may indicate ease with abundance and enjoyment, while a challenged Venus can point to struggles around worth, attachment, or financial balance. When functioning well, the second house provides powerful strengths. These include stability, reliability, patience, and the ability to build lasting foundations. This house supports long-term planning and teaches the importance of stewardship over resources. It encourages respect for both material and personal value and fosters resilience through consistency. One of the primary challenges of the second house is the fear of loss. This fear can manifest as hoarding, possessiveness, or resistance to change. When security feels fragile, people may cling tightly to money, possessions, or routines, even when letting go would create space for growth. In some cases, this fear can also show up as reckless spending, driven by the belief that comfort must be seized before it disappears. Another shadow expression of the second house involves equating self-worth with material success. When value becomes tied exclusively to income, status, or possessions, periods of financial instability can deeply impact self-esteem. This house teaches that while material stability is important, it cannot fully substitute for inner worth. Without that awareness, People may feel chronically anxious, never believing they have enough no matter how much they accumulate. Growth in the second house comes from developing a healthy relationship with value. This means recognizing that self-worth is not solely dependent on possessions or income, while still honoring the need for material stability. Conscious use of this house involves balancing enjoyment with responsibility and learning to trust that resources can flow without excessive fear or control. The second house does not operate alone but works as part of the larger house system. It follows the first house of identity and precedes the third house of communication and learning. Across the chart, the eighth house reflects shared resources and transformation, offering a deeper contrast to the personal ownership of the second house. Together, these houses describe how value is created, shared, and transformed over time. The second house lays the groundwork for security, allowing growth in other areas of life. Without it, stability is difficult to maintain and confidence can be undermined. Understanding this house clarifies how you support yourself both materially and emotionally. In upcoming videos, we'll explore what each planet in the second house means in more detail, how different signs on the second house cusp influence values and finances, and how transits through the second house affect income, security, and self-worth over time. In upcoming videos, we'll continue exploring the astrology houses one by one, building a complete picture of how different areas of life unfold within the chart. Understanding the houses helps you understand where your life unfolds. This is just the beginning. Thank you for watching Celestial Zodiac. If you found this breakdown of the second house helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so you don't miss the rest of the series.